Your mom is practically a stranger to me, right? Why should I have to take care of her?"
My husband yelled in front of my mom, who's advanced in dementia. All I want is some cooperation as a family.
"It's affecting my work, so I'm moving out starting today. That's okay, right?"
He spits out. Does he think I don't know anything? Holding back my inner thoughts, I respond, "Sure, that's fine." Now I'm going to put a certain plan into action. I'm Sharon, 50 years old. I'm technically an executive at the company my dad founded, but now I'm caring for my mom at our family home. My husband Neil, 55, works as the COO at the same company. We've been married for 25 years. Our 2 sons left for college and are now working adults, but marriage seems far off for both. My dad, a self-made entrepreneur, worked tirelessly, often sacrificing sleep, but perhaps due to this, he suddenly passed away from a heart attack 20 years ago. The shock was immense, so my mom stepped in as the president, deciding to keep the company afloat. "I don't want to let my husband's company go under. I'm a novice and I don't know much about running a business. Please, I need your support," she pleaded with the remaining employees and executives, bowing her head. Eventually, my dad's most trusted executive was appointed vice president, effectively managing the company, with my mom rarely intervening. My husband, 5 years into our marriage at the time, and seen as the potential future president, held the position of COO, but was deemed too inexperienced to take on the president role. He continued to learn under the vice president. Looking back, perhaps my mom didn't fully trust him. Over these 20 years, thanks to the unified efforts of our employees, we've managed to overcome difficult times and keep the company running. While working alongside the regular employees, I was able to send our sons to college. Things seemed to be going well. After my dad's death, even though my mom was only president in name, she faced her share of hardships. Recently, her health and memory have visibly declined. She forgets things like going shopping and buys the same items repeatedly, can't remember what she said just moments ago, and struggles to recall people's names. "Who are you?" she asked me one day, and I couldn't help but cry. She started to forget even me. The doctor diagnosed her with early-stage dementia. Medication helps her converse normally, but if she forgets to take it, her symptoms worsen, leading to wandering and other mistakes. I left the company to care for my mom, and at the same time we discussed a change in the presidency among the senior employees. It was assumed that my husband would become the president, as my late dad had planned, but there was some disagreement about that within the company. Many employees who had supported the company under the de facto leadership of the vice president for 20 years felt he should become the president. The company wasn't in trouble, and my mom was president in name only. I think the employees respected her as president out of loyalty to my dad. My husband was always serious, his only notable trait, and he became the COO after marrying me, thanks to my dad. Despite this, his ambition was evident, and it didn't sit well with the employees. Still, when we got married, he was regarded as a hardworking and competent employee. To me, who started working at my dad's company right after high school, he was a role model. So when he asked me out and we decided to get married, I was thrilled. But after he became the COO, a likely successor to my dad, he began to change. This change became more apparent after my dad's death. He probably thought he would automatically become the president. But when that didn't happen, his behavior towards my mom turned cold.
"You're the president, Mary. You should understand these things. It's troubling if you don't,"
he would say, clearly blaming her, even though she left the management to the vice president. Mom, enduring this, "Neil, you're still young. There's a lot for you to learn." And so she said, in an attempt to calm my husband, "The lives of our employees depend on this. You don't understand that yet. You can't handle the company until you understand the weight of this responsibility." Mom, who had supported my dad and felt the weight of the presidential responsibility, tried to make my husband understand, but his attitude remained unchanged. Things were better when our sons were still at home. But once they left for college and it was just me, Mom, and him, his harsh words only worsened. The young man who once worked so diligently was gone, replaced by someone who lorded over the other employees.
"Why isn't that job done yet? If it's late, it's going to be my responsibility,"
he bellows, his voice echoing through the company.
But COO, we're swamped with other tasks. We just can't handle more. Please understand.
An employee pleads.
What? Don't talk back. You're useless. You're fired. Fired!
He retorts with a borderline abusive tone. He often takes on more work than the team can handle without proper planning. Instead of assigning tasks properly, a responsibility of his position, he regularly blames the employees, a typical scene at the office. The vice president, unable to ignore this, gently advises,
COO, I understand you're taking on jobs for the company's sake, but without proper planning, work doesn't get done efficiently. You understand, right?
But my husband doesn't take this to heart. Employees express their dissatisfaction, but they speak only to the vice president, probably out of consideration for me and my mom. However, as their discontent grows, it eventually reaches me and Mom. I can't take it anymore. If you want to be president, you need to listen to your employees. I finally tell my husband. Then,
what's wrong with calling useless people useless?
My husband responded. After being confronted by me, he starts avoiding coming home. The rare times he does return, the smell of alcohol and a faint scent of perfume, suggesting another woman, linger on him. So when my mom's dementia became known, he hardly ever came home. He still went to work, apparently commuting from somewhere else. When he finally showed up at home, "Where have you been? I can't take my eyes off Mom. It's really tough. Please, think about us a bit." I confronted him. His reply was cold.
Why should I care about an old Mary? She's practically a stranger to me. How can I be expected to look after an old, useless person?
And he said this right in front of my mom. I'm not asking you to take care of Mom. I just want you to think like a family member. Do you understand? I pleaded.
I married you because you were the president's daughter. What a disaster this turned out to be.
His retort was harsh. Tears welled up in my eyes.
I can't stand looking at your aging Mary anymore, and I'm tired of your lectures. See you,
he said and left the house. Mom's dementia progressed each day, and it was getting harder to slow it down with medication. I was grateful for the nursing care helper who came twice a week. Thank you so much, Mom would occasionally say to me or the helper. I couldn't tell if she was lucid in those moments or not, but it made me happy to see her regain her old kindness, if only briefly. What's this? The nursing care helper noticed a notebook-like object beside Mom's bed. Let me see, I said, taking it from her. It was a heavy leather-bound notebook. Mom slept peacefully. When I hesitantly opened it, I found it was my late dad's journal. His familiar handwriting, strong and honest, reflected his character. I read through the journal, a mix of diary and notes, capturing Dad's feelings about family, the company, failed and successful ventures, and the joy of the business taking off. His writing ended the day before he passed away.
I thought he was capable, so I approved his marriage to my daughter, but I'm disappointed in Neil. He doesn't care about the company. He embezzled company funds and resents me for finding out. Never make him president.
Dad's last words struck me. Mom knew about this. It seemed coincidental that Dad passed away shortly after writing this, but it was clear now that my husband married me aiming for presidency. Surely, Mom must have discussed this with the vice president. Still, as my husband and the father of her beloved grandchildren, Mom likely chose to bear this burden and keep an eye on him herself. I noticed another page with writing. Sharon, I entrust this to you while I still remember. Stop, Neil. It was my mom's handwriting, slightly shaky. In her moments of clarity, she must have wanted to pass this journal to me. Thank you, Mom. I silently expressed my gratitude to her, peacefully sleeping like a child. That's when my second son, Dylan, called.
What? Dad left home? Why?
He was surprised when I told him everything that had happened since they left for college.
I always knew he wasn't too keen on work, but I didn't realize it was this bad.
He sighed. He'd graduated and was working at an IT company, a responsible adult now. I decided to discuss the future with him.
I understand. I'll handle it. Don't worry about Mom,
he assured me confidently. It seemed like just yesterday he was a crying child, but children grow up so fast. Unknowingly, my son had grown to surpass me. I quickly contacted the vice president. I want to discuss the presidential change in front of all employees. Can we arrange it? Please, the vice president agreed, and a week later, an emergency general meeting was scheduled with all the employees. Our small corporation had shares inherited by Mom from my late dad, with the rest divided among the officers, including my husband and me, and all the employees. Now, everything was ready. All that was left was to wait for the day. The day before the meeting, my son came home and tried to talk to Mom.
Grandma, it's me, Dylan. Do you recognize me?
Mom was distant and unresponsive.
Mom, I think Grandma's forgotten me,
he said sadly. Then Mom suddenly murmured, Dad, it's been so long. Welcome home. She seemed to mistake my son for my late father. Indeed, my grown son did bear a resemblance to my father's younger days. It felt like Dad had come back, and I was overwhelmed with emotion, hopeful for tomorrow. Seeing her son, she thought to herself, on the day of the meeting, despite the short notice and being after hours, the company's large conference room was packed with employees. Although we were a small company, with less than 100 employees, the turnout was impressive. My husband, still the COO, sat there, arms crossed, looking down on everyone. His attitude was frankly unpleasant. Mom still held the title of president, but, unable to attend, she had given me her proxy.
Thank you all for gathering despite your busy schedules,
the vice president began.
Let's skip unnecessary talk and get to the point. Shall I continue with the proceedings?
Following his statement, a chorus of agreement rose from the audience.
Then, please proceed,
the vice president said, turning to me to continue speaking. Our current president, due to dementia, cannot continue in her role. I propose a change in presidency. I started. My husband smirked smugly at my words. I propose promoting our current vice president, who has effectively supported the company, to president. This aligns with the wishes of the current president, my mother, I declared. The room erupted in approval.
Objection!
My husband suddenly shouted, silencing the room.
The president is senile, unable to make decisions. What proof do you have?
He mocked. This is it. These are the notes left by the former president, my dad, followed by entries from the current president, my mom. I will share their contents with all of you, I said, holding up my dad's journal.
What?
My husband was speechless. Then, an employee who had long supported the company's accounting spoke up.
I propose an urgent agenda item.
This was all part of the plan.
The COO here ordered me to make unaccounted withdrawals and to cover them up. I demand his dismissal for this.
My husband's face turned pale, clearly not expecting such a revelation here.
Lies! This is nonsense! What proof do you have?
He stammered. Then my son entered the room.
Dylan, why are you here? You're not an employee. You shouldn't be in this meeting.
My husband asked, his voice trembling. My son replied,
I've been given half the shares each from Mom and Grandma, so I have the right to speak here.
Misinterpreting this, my husband regained some boldness.
Great, then support me. I'll hand over the president's position to you eventually.
He pleaded with our son.
Dad, you're in this photo, aren't you?
My son signaled, and an image appeared on the screen through the projector. It showed my husband walking arm in arm with an unknown woman, entering an apartment.
I hired a detective to investigate. It's a shame, finding out my own dad has been doing things like this,
my son said, his voice filled with disappointment.
You've been funding the club this woman runs, right? Even paid for the apartment? I've covered everything.
He continued calmly. At a loss for words, my husband crumbled to his knees. Watching this, the vice president addresses the employees.
Any more comments? If not, let's move to the vote.
My husband remained motionless.
All in favor of the proposed agenda, please raise your hands,
the vice president said. Everyone except my husband raised their hands. Suddenly, my husband looked up.
I tolerated this marriage because you were the president's daughter, and now it's all for nothing. I should never have married you.
He spat out at me. Let him say what he wants. He betrayed not just me, but our entire family. Even our son here must be ashamed to be your child. I thought this to myself, tuning out his cruel words.
If you want me to leave, Fine, I'm better off without this company. We're getting a divorce, and I'm relieved."
With those parting words, my husband left the meeting room.
"Mom, what would you think if I quit my current job and joined this company?"
My son asked me with a smile. I'd be happy to have him back, but I didn't think this company was worth him leaving his IT job. It's sweet of you, but isn't there a more suitable job for your generation? I feel this place is a bit outdated, I said, a bit sadly. That was truly how I felt.
"You're wrong, Mom. There's still demand here, and with the right approach, we can make it more efficient. I don't want to lose the company Grandpa built," he said. His words brought tears to my eyes. "The modern 3D printers are amazing. With programming, we can create models in no time, eliminating the need for lengthy prototyping," he said excitedly. It made me realize how times have changed. It's no longer our era. Let the kids do it their way. They have ideas we could never imagine. I used to think of him as just a child. But when did he grow up so much? Marrying that man was a mistake, but I'm grateful he gave me this son. The worst husband left the best legacy. Sometime later, my husband and I officially divorced. The lawyer handling the divorce said my husband initially refused to pay alimony, claiming he couldn't afford it. However, after the disclosure of the embezzled company funds and payments to his mistress's club and apartment, which coincided with the timing of the apartment purchase, he eventually agreed to pay. He had boasted about funding the mistress's apartment and moved in, but when the money ran out, so did their relationship. He was kicked out, as I heard through the grapevine. He tried to leverage his past connections for a new job, but his embezzlement had become known, and no one would associate with him. Lost credibility is hard to regain. At his age, in his mid-50s, he struggled to find a job and was seen doing traffic control for road construction by one of our employees. Dylan, having joined the company, was bustling around as an idea man, from directing on-site operations to handling sales. A young programmer recommended by him joined the company, infusing new life and energy. Feeling the breath of a new generation, the atmosphere was positive. Then, some wonderful news from Dylan. He wanted to marry his college girlfriend, who had been working at the same company as him. She decided to join our company to support him. She sounds smart, and I'm looking forward to her joining us.